In today's video, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about whether Rome or the Vatican is referenced in the book of Revelation. The verse in question is Revelation 17:9, which reads, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom, the 7 heads or 7 mountains, on which the women sitteth." Certain translations of the Bible have this as 7 hills, and that directly points to Rome in the eyes of some, since Rome was built on 7 hills. The woman referenced as sitting on the 7 mountains is the great whore, or Mystery Babylon. And to those who believe that this verse is referring to the city of Rome being built on 7 hills, they will also identify the Vatican as the great whore sitting atop of those 7 hills. The reason I want to discuss this is because I am currently working on a video about the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and properly identifying what the 7 mountains refer to is a key component to our understanding that whole prophecy. That particular video will be pretty in-depth, as examining the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns will, by necessity, involve covering Mystery Babylon. I anticipate it being a 3-part video series, and I expect to have part 1 finished sometime in January of 2022. Until then, let's talk a minute about the idea that Revelation 17:9 points to Rome as the city built on 7 hills, and to the Vatican as sitting atop those 7 hills. The truth is that there are 5 major reasons why that is an extremely poor interpretation. First, while Rome was indeed built on 7 hills, that is not unusual at all. There are actually close to 100 different cities all around the world which either have been or claim to have been built on the top of 7 hills. That list includes Washington, D.C., by the way, the seat of American power. The fact that there are so many cities that have been built on top of 7 hills should be a clear indication that this is not a prophetic sign, as there is simply nothing unique to a city being built on 7 hills. Second, the Bible often uses the word mountain to symbolize a kingdom, as we see in these verses. "The mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills. The stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. I am against thee, O destroying mountain." So by letting the Bible interpret the Bible, we can clearly see that the reference to 7 mountains in Revelation 17:9 is actually referring to 7 kingdoms. Third, verse 10 specifically associates 7 kings with those 7 mountains. Kings do not rule hills, they rule kingdoms. The only way that 7 kings even makes sense is in the context of 7 kingdoms. Thus, between verse 9 and verse 10, we are being told that the subject is 7 kingdoms with 7 kings. Fourth, verse 10 also tells us that of the 7 kings being referenced, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is not yet come. This passage reinforces the 7 kingdoms interpretation, and even those who attempt to subjectively associate the 7 kings with various popes down through history have a difficult time with this verse. Fifth, since the Bible teaches us that each of the 7 mountains represents one specific kingdom and king, with 5 of them having already fallen, we can easily understand that these 7 mountains are not all existing at the same time, but instead arise at different periods over the course of human history. Since Mystery Babylon is sitting atop these 7 mountains, the exact location of Mystery Babylon also changes depending on which one of the beast's 7 satanic kingdoms is ruling at that point in history. Thus, the idea that the 7 mountains refers to one specific geographical location is a fundamental misunderstanding of this prophecy. To conclude, Revelation 17:9 is not referring to Rome or the Vatican, but is instead talking about 7 kingdoms and kings which exist at different times throughout human history. The location of Mystery Babylon is not tied to one geographical location such as 7 hills, but changes to correspond to which one of the 7 satanic kingdoms and kings is ruling. The specific identity of those 7 kingdoms and kings is something I'll cover in next month's video about the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. As I mentioned a moment ago, that video series will also cover Mystery Babylon, which you may be surprised to hear is not in Europe or the Middle East. Now, having said all that, I do believe that there is another verse in the Bible that very well could be talking about a coming pope, and how that pope will play an essential role in the end times, and it's a verse we all know very well. That verse is Revelation 13:11, where we read, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." This, of course, is speaking about the false prophet. The false prophet looks like a lamb, which is certainly a perfect description of a pope, but he also speaks like a dragon. Speaking like a dragon is not only a reference to using fiery rhetoric, but just as importantly, that his speech will be filled with lies. Remember, in John chapter 8, verse 44, Satan is referred to as the father of lies. Thus, the false prophet, just like the Antichrist, will be someone who constantly lies as a means to an end. And the end, in the case of the false prophet, is getting the world to worship the Antichrist. The Bible does teach us that the false prophet will have as much power as the first beast, but he will use this power to cause the world to worship the Antichrist. This will be done by so-called miracles, by having an image made to the beast, by giving life to that image, and by instituting the mark of the beast. In fact, the false prophet's role of causing the world to worship the Antichrist should tell us he will be a powerful religious figure, because while the Antichrist rules with political might and a fearful and unstoppable military, his being assisted by someone who oversees all the world's religions is what truly enables him to dominate all nations. Thus, the power of the Antichrist comes from not only his own honoring the God of forces, but also by the false prophet being able to unify all religions and pointing all men and women toward worshiping the Antichrist. And of all the powerful religious figures in the world, there is only one who could potentially be able to exert so much influence over other religions: the Pope. And we should remember that the Vatican has indeed been attempting for many years to unite all religions under the Pope's leadership. In recent years, the Vatican has made substantial progress in that area, as they have been offering to share the immense wealth of the Catholic Church with other religions in return for recognizing the Pope has religious preeminence. Everything is lining up for a one-world religion, with the Pope being its recognized leader. By the way, I do not believe that the current Pope is that man. In fact, I am extremely surprised that Pope Francis is still the pontiff, mostly because he himself stated a few years back that his tenure would likely be no more than 5 years, which would have placed his departure around the year 2018, but also because there is a lot of pressure in the Catholic Church to remove him, based on both his perceived liberalism, but also as a potential scapegoat of sorts for the various problems in the church, especially dealing with the sexual abuse of children. A little over a year ago, I made a short video about the man I expect to be the next pope, which is Cardinal Pietro Parolin. I'll put a link up top in case you didn't see that video, but I also believe that someone like Archbishop Vigano could be involved in some way, perhaps exerting influence behind the scenes. Vigano is not only notoriously and unabashedly pro-Trump, but he is exactly the type of ultra-conservative figure that might find his way back inside the Vatican after close to 10 years of a decidedly liberal approach under Pope Francis. While a potential Trump-Vigano dynamic would certainly match what I'm looking for with the Antichrist and false prophet, I am keeping my mind open regarding whether a pope would fulfill this role. But when I try to think about how any other figure could arise on the world scene with the authority to coerce other religions and all people to worship the Antichrist, the Pope is the only one I can visualize as potentially having that much power. We'll have to see how this plays out over the coming months and years, of course, but as of right now, I believe we should keep an eye on who will be the next Pope, and specifically pay attention to Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Archbishop Vigano. At some point in the near future, one or both of them may very well end up being the false prophet and may very well be the ones pointing the world to the Antichrist. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and if you care to leave a comment, please do. As always, please be respectful in any comment you leave. I'll talk to you guys soon.